Today is going to be a highly charged episode. Today, we're going to talk about being triggered. What does that mean? When we recognize that we are triggered, what do we do about it? So, one of the things to recognize is that everything in life that we experience, the way that our brain is set up, is based on a nerve cell firing or a nerve cell not firing. And if the nerve cell fires, the potential to have an experience is there. And a nerve cell does not fire, the potential to have an experience is not there. So our system is based on this polarized polarity: yes, no, black, white, fire, not fire. So everything that we experience in life is based on polarity. In order to experience how everything is interconnected, we must first embrace polarity. Embrace these seeming opposites in life. The more unconscious we are, the more on autopilot, the more that we're going through life not really having an experience, the less of our brain is involved. Whenever we do something again and again and again and again, to the point where we don't even need to think about it, there's much fewer brain cells involved than when we're learning a brand new task, and a lot of our brain is involved. So the less nerve cells that we have firing and engaging in a particular task, the less awareness that we have. Our brain is literally, and our experiences of life are literally based off of polarity. They are based off of a dichotomy, a dualistic perspective, a dualistic experience. But this is not how real reality operates. Real reality operates as a whole, but that's outside of our ability to physically experience. And so we need to understand that if change is possible, meaning that we're taking in either different information or information in a new way, we are going to have to embrace and then rise above or transcend duality or polarization or this versus that. Even though that's not how it works in the real world, we work that way, and we have to embrace that aspect of ourselves if we are going to change. Now, a lot of times, because we build this particular identity, we attach ourselves and what we think we are and who we think we are to one side of that polarity. When the other side comes in, our brain and our body literally go into a defensive pattern. Okay, if you have noticed, talking politics or talking religion brings in a lot of tension, especially with people that do not have the same perspective that you do. But without tension, without that buildup, there is no potential for the release into a higher level of being, into a higher level of organization. So that building up of tension, number one, is very important for change. And on the other side of that, embracing that seeming duality is necessary to use that tension, process the information differently, then use the energy differently to come into a higher order. So today we're going to talk about what happens when we get triggered, when something inside of us is just like, I can't believe that this happened. I can't believe that they said that. I can't believe blah, 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 blah. All that is the limitations of our ability to process information on both sides of our brain. All that is the experience of there is more out there than we think, than we feel, than we believe, than our identity will allow us to experience. Anything outside of that is going to start to put cracks or poke holes in that sense of identity that we have built. And that creates a lot of pain. That creates a lot of discomfort. Now, that doesn't mean that we need to, only surround ourselves with people who think and feel like us. That is a great way to stay the same. And there's a time and a place for it to stay the same. If you've been going through a tremendous amount of change in your life and your identity has been ripped up, left, right till Tuesday, then hey, it's really nice for us, for a specific amount of time to be surrounded by those people that are going to really nourish and foster this new sense of identity. But after a while, that becomes a trap. That becomes literally this new identity starts to function in the same way that the old one does, and it'll create either the same or it'll create similar rooted type of dysfunctions. So when we notice that we are triggered, when we notice that we have bumped up against this, I can't believe, blah, okay, this thought that everyone's supposed to be like us, and if they're not, oh my gosh, it crushes my heart. Okay, no, not everyone's supposed to be like us. That would be really super boring. But when we bump up against this cognitive dissonance and we recognize that there's something going on inside of us, okay, the first thing to do is just to stop and to recognize that if there was not something in us that was blocked, if there was not some type of restriction in our ability to experience more of reality, then we would be able to hear that triggering thing. We'd be able to experience or see that triggering thing, and we would not get that tension. We would not have that buildup of energy that we call discomfort or pain or anger or frustration or anxiety or like whatever else we want to classify it as. So when we notice ourselves being triggered, the first thing to do is to stop and to really pay attention exactly where and what is that sensation that I'm trying to blame on some sort of outside influence or outside cause. All right. If someone around us has a very, very similar frequency, if they have a very similar resonance, if they have a similar blockage, then they expressing it in their own unique way will automatically trigger that in us. This is what's called the law of entrainment. Okay, so when we get triggered, that has much more to do with the limitations of our consciousness level, the limitations of our ability to process information has much more to do with us than it does some outside influence. Okay, so once we stop and once we acknowledge where we need to put our focus into, what really needs to change, is it something that we can control, which is going to be us, have influence on, or is it something that we're never going to have control over? We've talked before about these different energy levels, okay, that energy neutral level, which most people live at, and is a great place to live at, but it can become a trap. Okay, the more and more we focus on things we can't change, the more that's the very, very tricky mind ego trying to maintain its sense of self by putting our focus on something we will never change. You will never change who's in the presidency. You will never, ever, ever change the left wing or the right wing. You will never change what's going on out in society. Okay, you will only be able to influence your field, your information processing, your ability to experience and expand your experience. Now, doing that does have an influence on the world around you. However, it's really where is your focus? And is your focus on what's practical, or is your focus on what is impractical, which is having the direct influence, which this is the place we have the direct influence, versus where the indirect influence is, okay? Many times we get it backwards. We're like, okay, well, I'm gonna have this indirect influence on myself. So when my husband changes, when my kids change, when society changes, when technology changes, then I will feel a specific way. This is not how the biological body works, okay? We train the body. Everything that we experience, the way that we go through life, is completely based on what have we habitually practiced experiencing in the past. So the real reality is when we start changing the way that we experience things, when we start experiencing more joy and more peace and more freedom, then we will start to see the changes in the outside world. But again, putting our focus on where the indirect effect is supposed to be is a great way to experience no change whatsoever. So once we've noticed we're triggered, once we've acknowledged that, once we have recognized where the focus needs to be, okay, the next thing to do is to laugh, is just to really dive into the irony of how these emotions that we're experiencing, the anger, the frustration, and where we've put the focus, how ironic is it? How crazy is it that we spend so much of our useful, practical energy on things that we have no direct influence on? How insane is it that we spend all of this time and all of this energy spinning our wheels subconsciously so that we won't go anywhere, so that we can protect this false sense of identity that we have? This is the time to watch a good comedian. This is the time to watch some sort of, comedy, and just laugh. Just laugh at how crazy we are. Just laugh at how insane we are, that we can only experience a tiny, tiny fraction of what actually exists out there. And yet we get so caught up into our way of thinking and our way of seeing. And we just really, really believe at times in an insane way that if everyone could just see it the way that we did, or just feel the way that we did, then, nobody out there would have these bad experiences. And it's like, no. And the craziest part of all is the way that our brain is set up. Without those bad experiences, without this end of the spectrum, we would not be able to experience the other end. This is why historically, people that have reached very, very high states of awareness, very high states of enlightenment, they have had tremendous amounts of pain and suffering in their lives. Now, we're coming to a point in history where the potential for that to no longer be necessary is becoming more and more of a reality. More and more people are going to be able to achieve very, very high states without needing that extreme suffering, because as we move into this phase of humanity where there's a lot more interconnectedness, each one of us, it has the potential to utilize the suffering that has already been experienced somewhere in the collective, rather than needing to experience that as an individual. But as we move into this, we're going to have to recognize that this versus that, good versus bad, what I like, what I don't like, all of that is just a story that we tell ourselves. All of that is just a perspective. It's only one way of looking at things. And in certain scenarios, like a survival scenario, that's a very good way at looking at things. That can save your life. Pathway, good. Off the cliff, bad. Tiger, bad. Puppy dog, good. There's a time and a place for this good, bad type of thinking. But most of us do not spend a small fraction of our life there comparative to the large fraction of our life that we spend acting like it. So when we're triggered, we acknowledge it. We recognize what we're doing and how we're wasting our energy. We laugh at it. We laugh, 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 laugh. And once we've laughed, once we have really expressed a lot of that positive chemistry moving through the body, then we can start digging into, okay, what is it about this situation that I'm not able to see beyond, that I'm not able to experience? Where is this border or this boundary in which black and white type of thinking is the absolute highest I can go? So one of the exercises that I really like to do, and this is very much of a, coming from spiral dynamics, and, that second tier, that higher level thinking, you have to have higher level thinking in order to do this, which is to look at the situation or the person or the action, the scenario, and say, okay, yes, I see this as bad, but is there a time and a place for this? Would there be a scenario? Would there be a time in which this type of behavior, this circumstance, this scenario might be beneficial? Can I find a way that this expression would somehow be useful somewhere and at some point in human history? For whatever reason. If we can see that, oh, there is a time and a place for this, then we're able to get beyond this is completely black and this is completely right. We can start merging those and recognizing it in kind of more of a flow. And this may not be bad, maybe it's just out of place. Okay. And if it's out of place, what might be the factors that are pushing it to be expressed out of place or out of time? What could we add in? What could we experience? What type of information could we share that might help shift why that's being expressed at the wrong time or the wrong place? Okay, now we've moved up from energy neutral, which is good, bad, got to keep things the same. Now we've moved up to energy rich, where, wow, now I see where I could have an impact over here. Okay, you're seeing beyond just what's going on the surface level. You're seeing the much, much deeper level. And when you see the much deeper level, you have the ability to interact in a way that's not as forceful, that doesn't create another version of polarity. Okay, so we're going to do a little, and one other thing, and this was really interesting that this topic came up right after Connie, and I'm sure this is not a coincidence at all, right after Connie led us through an amazing hemispherical balancing practice yesterday in episode 20, because the more and more we can process information with both sides of our brain, because both sides of our brain process information differently. And the more we can process the same information from different lenses or different perspectives, the easier it is to get out of that black and white, right, wrong, triggering, emotional hijacking type of way of being. So balancing out our brain physically is one way that we can move into the future and create a version of ourselves that has the capacity to not have to be triggered so often. Okay. But triggered, again, since we're talking about non-black and white thinking, is actually not a bad thing. Okay. There is a time and a place to be triggered. Right? Because when we're triggered, there's a high emotional state. And when we're in a high emotional state, we are going to get something done. Some type of action is going to happen. And when we're triggered, when do we want that action to happen? Now, now, now. So there's a time and a place to really use that energy. Okay? And because the space in between us, because the connection between people is something that is a part of life and something that influences us, and we can influence others. Whenever we get into that heightened emotional state, guess what? We energize everyone around us. And when everyone around us is in a heightened, energized state, it energizes us. Now, the only question is, how do you use that energy? Okay? Because whenever you are energized, you have the potential. But if you're in this black and white thinking, okay, that's the only way that you're going to be able to use this energy, is this back and forth, black and white. And when we use the energy from us being triggered, when we use it at that level, that's more of what we create. So we create more triggered people around us rather than being able to use that energy and come at things in a much, much higher way. Okay, hang on just one second. All right, so sorry about that. I was getting really close to being triggered. There's a lot of noise coming in from from my daughters. So just made a quick shift way before that happened. Recognize that them making all that noise is a sound that they're happy and safe. That's a very, very good thing. And I can make a change so that they can keep making that noise and it doesn't distract me as much. So, like I said, we need to recognize the energy that is there and recognize that all of our experiences come from a certain level of energy. And if we are experiencing a lower experience, that means that although there's energy there, like when we're triggered, that means it's time to up the ante. It's time to bring that to a different level rather than just feeding into the same. Okay, so we're going to go through some SRI here in just a minute. But the focus of SRI today is really going to be to bring our level of awareness into the stage of the triggered and then moving beyond the stage of the triggered. Okay. This, I'm going to let you know ahead of time, is a very, very disruptive thing within ourselves. There's going to be a lot of things changing. This needs to happen. This needs to happen for ourselves right now. This needs to happen in humanity right now if we're going to make this big leap into the next renaissance rather than falling into the next great dark ages. But I'm going to let you know, whenever I was doing this to prepare, like I said, there's a big shift that happened, but right after that, it was disorienting for a little while. So just be aware, give yourself some time and some space, some time to integrate this. So before we get in, Barbara had said, I talked about embracing the seeming duality. Can you give an example? Yeah, sure, I can give an example. So, one of the easiest examples to go off of would be this seeming duality between the left and the right politically, the seeming duality between the Democrats and the Republicans, the seeming duality between the liberal progressives and the conservatives, okay? That's not a real duality. Okay, there's a time and a place to bring in lots and lots of change. Okay, there's a time and a place to preserve what we have. Okay, there's a time to be progressive. There's a time to be conservative. These are not opposites. Okay, these are the flow. Okay, this is the fluctuation. We have to recognize that these are different tools that need to be applied differently. As of right now, and this is definitely not what it used to be in history, but the Democratic Party is the more socially conscious party. They're the ones that want to take care of everybody and provide all of these different services from the collective resources. Okay, and then the other side, right now it seems like a lot of the Republican mindset is much more of the individualistic, take care of yourself, be independent type of mindset. Again, these mindsets are not opposite. They are both very, very appropriate and very necessary, but at the right time, in the right place for the right reasons. Because the Republicans are right. And if everything is everyone is babysat, if everyone is just spoon-fed, there is no hunger for change, there will be no change, and that's not sustainable. And at the same time, the Democrats are right whenever they say that the Republicans are too focused on only those who have the ability to be independent and take care of themselves. So this is not even a balancing thing. This is a recognition that each one seems opposite, but there's a right time and a right place for either one. And it can't be all conservative and it can't be all progressive. It can't be all independence and it can't be all, social protection. It has to be a balance of both, not even just in the middle. Okay, sometimes a little bit more of this, sometimes a little bit more of that, sometimes all of this, sometimes none of this. Okay, it's really just about that recognition that these are two different tools that have the potential to work together rather than seeing them as these black and white opposites. Okay, yes, and that's what it's all about, Barbara, is finding a scenario where something is beneficial. So what would that be? I think I just kind of explained that a little bit. But even, taking something as like super, super dark, and, super like, violence. We take violence and we go, okay, when would be an appropriate time for violence to occur? And it's like, oh, well, survival situation. In a survival situation, when there is something physically being violent, that would be the time to bring in violence in a defensive type of manner. So, again, this is really a test of how resourceful you are. This is really a test of how energy rich you have the potential to be. Take the deepest, darkest thing that you could possibly think of and come up with an imaginary scenario in which there would be some sort of benefit for that. Okay, and I'm going to go super deep and dark. I've experienced some of this, but I'm going to share a story that Donnie tells, in that he was working with a woman who had experienced a sexual abuse in her family. Okay, her mind suppressed that. She actually did not have any memory of that, but her entire life she was a social worker who specifically focused on helping abused women. And she helped thousands upon thousands of abused women. And she could do it in such a powerful and impactful and compassionate way. These women's lives were completely different after they interacted with her. And she would have never had that charge. She would have never had that passion if she had never experienced that herself. So even though that is one of the darkest scenarios I could possibly think of, there is some good that came out of that. And that doesn't mean that we're going to say, hey, we need more of that. That's just the recognition of, oh, wow, I don't have to be 100% on guard, tense, and defensive against this because, there's a little bit of light in this darkness. And a little bit of light is the only thing that's necessary in order to dissipate the darkness. So, let's go ahead and jump into this practice real quick. So everybody find some space, find some place that you can relax, that you can tune in, that you can drop in. We're going to move a little bit quickly because these are all exercises that we've learned prior to this. Okay, so we're going to move pretty quickly into this. So sprawl out, lay down, sit down, but if you sit down, sit at the very, very edge of the chair with your spine erect. We're going to stop at the start with stage 1, just finding what's going on. So at the very, very top, breathe in all the way and let go, and let go, and let go. Just tuning in the nose, out the mouth to this very, very upper spot. Now moving down to the solar plexus, and again, pay attention what strategies are working for you right now. What do you notice? Where is the easiest place to drop in and tune into? Is it the breath, the inhale, exhale? Is it the flow of energy? Is it the actual movement? Just choose one and then find the one that's challenged and don't use that one. So I want you to use 2 strategies today, but find the 2 that are working. And now move down to the belly button. Full cycle, full experience of the connection in the nose, out the nose. Now, at your own pace, go back and forth between the very top and the very bottom and the middle. What do you notice is different about your ability to drop in to that place of peace, ease, and comfort? What do you notice is the difference between your ability to relax and just allow the process to happen? Fully experience that cycle of expansion, contraction, of inhale, exhale, of energy flow in, energy flow out. Fully experience that. And just identify which place can you experience the release, the letting go, the dropping in, the flow, the exhale, the contraction. Where can you experience that the most? And what seems to be the challenge today? When you've identified where the most challenging place is, and you've identified where the most open and effortless place is, move to the most open and effortless place, full cycle all the way in, experiencing the full drop into that place of peace and ease, all the way in, experiencing the full drop into that place of peace, ease, connection, all the way, experience that drop in to connection. Now move up to the most challenging spot and repeat after me. Sometimes I seem so helpless. Go. Now, fully experience that cycle in this area. Fully experience the dropping in. And back to that spot of connection. Back to that spot, that favorite spot, all the way 3 to 4 full cycles, dropping in, connecting, following with curiosity into all of them. And now move back to that place of least connection, the challenge. Fully experience it. Repeat after me. Sometimes things seem so impossible. Go. Now fully experience that full cycle and let go and let go and let go. Dropping in. Now back to spot number 1. Fully experience it. Fully be in that dropping in. Fully acknowledge that sometimes it seems like we're so helpless, we're not enough, things are impossible, nothing seems to change, nothing seems to work. Fully acknowledge that sometimes it seems that way. Now go back to that place that's a challenge and just experience it. Just let it be as it is, curious. And back to spot that's the most connected. Fully experience it as it is. Feel the difference. Feel the polarity. Feel the contrast. Now keep one hand on the spot that's the most connected and move the second hand over the spot that's the challenge. Breathe into the most connected, dropping in, finding that place of peace and ease. Breathe into, in the nose, out the mouth, that spot that's the most challenging. Breathe into the spot that's the most connected, all the way out, into the spot that's the most challenging. Now back and forth, one full complete cycle into each, really tuning in, really paying attention to the differences, really paying attention to the experience of having these different rhythms, of having these different parts. Experience how one part is easy and effortless, and experience how the other part is a challenge. Experience how one part is free and flowing. Experience how the other part is stuck or blocked or tense. Experience how one part feels strong and connected. Experience how the other part feels weak and maybe wounded and a challenge. Back and forth, and back and forth, and back and forth. In the nose, out the mouth. 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 Back and forth, back and forth. Now, take both hands and place them on the spot that's the most challenging to connect with. Recognize it's the most challenging to connect with. Ask this spot to speak up. Say, speak up. I need to hear more about what this challenge is. Use a nickname that you had whenever you were growing up and you were younger, a nickname that somebody who really cared for you would have utilized. If they were telling you that you need to speak your voice, you need to express your needs, what's really going on, so that this tension, defensiveness, stuckness can shift. Use that nickname now. Say, speak up, and then fill in the blank. And really get in there. Speak up. Speak up. Come on. Tell me what you need. And then put the other hand back into the spot that's most connected, back and forth, and back and forth, between the most connected and the least connected, between the most connected and the least connected. In the nose, out the mouth. 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 Back and forth, and back and forth. Now breathe into both simultaneously, like they are both being filled up and then dropping in to both, like you're connecting to both. Really expand both of them fully together, like they're receiving at the same time, and then let go and drop in and allow your body to relax and collapse into both. Really experience the flow into both spots and experience the flow back into the surrounding environment. Breathing into both spots simultaneously. Now breathe into the most connected spot. Go. And breathe into the least connected spot. Go. Repeat after me. I have many different parts. Go. Now breathing into the most connected spot. Repeat after me. I have many different rhythms. Go. Breathe into the least connected spot. Repeat after me. Some of these parts I really like. Really experience the most connected spot as you go through a full cycle. And repeat after me. Some of these parts really suck. And experience that full flow into the least connected spot. And repeat after me. But all of these spots are me. And then laugh. Belly laugh. Because it's hilarious that we have these different spots. And we are so focused on the differences. But it's the differences that actually make the whole work. If every cell in our body was a heart cell, we would not be able to do anything but pump blood, which would be great. Except we wouldn't be able to eat, we wouldn't be able to move, we wouldn't be able to poop. We definitely wouldn't be able to have sex. That would suck. So how crazy is it that we spend so much time focusing on the negatives of being different, rather than the uniqueness, the positives, the opportunities of being different? Breathe into both spots simultaneously. Repeat after me. All of my spots, all of my rhythms are free to receive and to give. All parts of me do not need to like each other, but all parts of me are free to be. And now take both hands and move up to that least connected spot. Really feel the tension, really feel the challenge, really feel the stuckness. Now increase the stuckness. Increase it, breathing in the nose and out the mouth. Drop in, make that spot worse. This spot is crying out for attention. Let it cry louder. Make it cry louder. Let it throw that temper tantrum. Experience that temper tantrum deeper and more intense, and then make the sound of being stuck there. Oh, so stuck. Make the sound of how challenging it is. Make the sound of that wounding. Make the sound of that wounded inner child. Really, really experience it. Make the sound go, 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 go. And then lighten up and relax. Breathing in the nose and out the mouth directly into that spot. Repeat after me. This part of me is so stuck. Go. I acknowledge this part of me. Go. I embrace this part of me in its uniqueness. Go. I apologize to this part of me. Go. For not being with this part in a more loving way. Go. Before this. Door, close it. Oh. Just breathing in and out of spot that's the least connected. Now, keep the focus here, okay? What we want to do is we're going to put the hands out in front of us, palms facing away, bending the knees lifting the feet off the floor. We're going to make a clockwise circle with our hands. We're going to breathe in the mouth and out the mouth. In the mouth and out the mouth. And we're going to make a clockwise circle. The top of that circle is going to be wherever the upper spot was, whether it's the least connected or the most connected. And the bottom part of that circle is going to be the lowest spot, whether it was the most connected or least connected. So we're going to swirl, we're going to circle between those two spots that we had worked on, the most connected and the least connected. Okay, we're going to find a rhythm with our hands. We're going to find a circular motion. The hands can go independently, circling around, creating two circles. They can move together. It doesn't matter, but find a rhythm that the body likes. Arms out in front, elbows slightly bent. All the motion is at the shoulder joints. The actual spine and body are staying very, very straight, very still. We're pushing the spine into the ground, synchronizing the breath with the movements of the arms. Bring the knees up, and create some sort of small circular motion with the knees as well. The knees can go kind of in a bicycle type motion. They can go into a circular motion. Now synchronize the movement of the legs right at the hips, right at where the upper leg bone connects to the pelvis. Keep the back of the pelvis on the floor or on the chair. Keep the spine as still as we can. Only the movements right at the shoulder sockets and right at the hip sockets, moving in a synchronized motion. Find that rhythm. In the mouth, out the mouth. In the mouth, out the mouth. Synchronize the breath with the arms and the legs moving together. In the mouth, out the mouth. In the mouth, out the mouth. Really gulping in all parts that have been rejected, gulping in the uniqueness of all parts, really experiencing all things flowing in. And as we exhale, all things flowing out, all the gifts that we didn't recognize that we had because we fractured ourselves, because we didn't recognize the uniqueness. So gulping it in. Really get in there. Synchronizing the breath with the arms, synchronizing the breath with the legs, really getting in there, creating that flow. Now bring in that movement of fascination, fascinating. How fascinating each one of the individual parts are. Think about the uniqueness of each one of our cells. Think about the uniqueness in every animal and plant in the rainforest or in the environment. Think about the uniqueness of every solar system in the galaxy. With one of those being slightly different, everything would have a different pull, would have a different push on it. It would be in a different time, place. Every little part, totally unique, but totally in harmony. Experience all of the parts of the universe. Experience all of the parts of yourself. Experience all the cells of the body. Experience the magic of how amazing it is that all of that's coming together to create what we're experiencing right now. In the mouth, out the mouth. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. Now, with the fascination, now bring in the magic of that. It is literally a miracle that all of that is in harmony and in place and creating what we're experiencing right now. Every one little thing being off and the potential for no existence to be there is possible. How fascinating, how magical is it that it's all working together? Spiral, fascination, and magic between those two spots that we were working on. Experience the swirling of the dark and the light. Experience the positive and the negative swirling together to create a unique expression, a unique whole. Swirling, swirling. We're almost there. Keep going. Keep going, swirling, keeping the spine straight. Only the arms, only the legs, only the knees, only the elbows, only the wrist, only the ankles. Spine and shoulder blades and hip and pelvis are locked into the floor, locked into place, swirling in the mouth, out the mouth, swirling, 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 swirling. Now, hold the hands directly over the spot that had the most trouble being connected and repeat after me. As I express my greater bandwidth, and my transformation. My enhanced available energy dispels all cultural illusions and stories. As my natural way becomes more authentic, my field, my body, my psyche, my roles, and my life claim a more productive, raw, real, and beautiful me. Now, let the arms drop down. Let the legs drop down. Allow the body to move. Allow the body to shift. Let it move you. Feel and experience the air and the space around you that fills up the room. Feel and experience the air and the space that makes up the body. Feel and experience the space that makes up all of humanity. Feel and experience the space that makes up each individual cell of our personal body and of the human experience, the body of humanity. And when you're ready, go ahead and move the fingers, move the toes, move the hips, move the spine, stretch, roll, twist, turn. Go ahead and sit on up and come back to the computer. Does anybody have any questions, any thoughts, any concerns, any curiosities? You can type them in. You can raise your hand. See if we can't unmute you.
Hey, Dad, it's Rob.
Go for it, Rob.
Hey, that was rad. I tried it sitting upright for the first time ever, and I was so much more aware of my spine and the different laying down. I didn't feel the dichotomy, the difference between like my highest energy and lowest energy at the time. But sitting upright, it just seemed to be so much more, I don't know, poignant.
Yes.
And again, with that, what I love today, what really clicked to me when I laid down when we went into like the upper stage, because it's kind of hard to move your legs and arms all on the edge of a chair. And
new skill set.
Yeah, new skill set. And what I found most beneficial, the whole thing, was to really feel all the different parts in me, but also the parts in the world.
Yes.
Like we're talking about, like, there really is no right and wrong. There is no black and white. They're all the same. Our ego just wants to put them in what's the right part of our body, what's the wrong part, what's the right part of society, what's the wrong part of society. And feeling that energetically was like fireworks.
Yes, absolutely. And that's one of the things to continue to remind ourselves is we cannot change that which we're not in relationship with. We can't change that which we do not value. If we don't know something, if we're not connected to something, we're not going to know how to influence it. We're not going to know how to impact it. So this concept that we have of, no right or no wrong, that's not moral relativism. That's just the acknowledgement that we need to embrace this thing if we want to make it more functional, more useful. Even if it has not been useful, even if it's been destructive in the past, there's a time and a place for that. So in order to figure out how to get to the most harmony, the most congruence, it's not saying that everything is perfect. What it's saying is there's value in everything. And if I want to know how this fits in, I want to know how to put the piece together, I have to value it. So there's a big difference between what Rob was saying in there's no right and there's no wrong versus moral relativism. So it's a totally different way of processing. It's not using this, there's no right and wrong as an excuse to not engage. It's saying there's no right and no wrong, as how do I value this so we can make things better. Thanks, Rob. That was awesome.
Thanks, Ted.
Anybody else? Let's see. Amory said instead of the pulsing she felt the other day, it felt more of a wave today. Excellent. That's a lot more coherent. There's a lot more transfer of energy with the wave motion. That's why we work with the wave motion in network spinal. Otherwise felt very similar, as if the energy was a particle the other day and now it was a wave. Yes, the wave is much more where the potential is. So yes, the other day probably shook up that particle, helped you to recognize, there needs to be a little bit more flow in here. And especially for some of us, depending on our triad of change, if we are a behavior prime, we do want to experience that flow more. If we're a structure prime, experiencing the particle more would be a way to be more productive. But yeah, it's all about riding the wave. That's right, Rob. Anybody else? Thoughts, questions, concerns, anger management issues? Bring it on now. Any polarities, any rhythms, any type of dichotomies that people would like to delve into? Go for it, Barbara.
I was sorry. Okay. Well, as you just said, thank you for saying that for structure is more about the particle, because it was a lot like in my hands and like the space in front of me, the kind of those like that particle thing.
Yeah, perfect.
In the physical part, in the I'm just trying to simplify this, but I've processed things with dreams. So while I don't remember my dream, I know I woke up in a different place.
Yes.
From where like I've been in lately, which I was very in tune to. Just different place again.
Yeah, a couple nights ago, I literally woke up doing stage 2 SRI. So well, I feel you there. I don't know what I was dreaming, but I was like, okay, something's changing.
Exactly, and I noticed, like, I wouldn't say I was mad, but it was different.
Mm-hmm.
And right now with the exercise, I mean, right or wrong or anything, right? But like, we do these exercises in some of the stages to claim our power back. Mm-hmm. I think it was a lot of that feeling of not only me, right, but
the collective.
Yes.
Yes.
And it makes me very emotional, of course.
Yes. Good, Barbara. Use that emotion. Whenever you express that emotion, when you tune into that, that is fueling the collective change. You're fueling the collective field. So thank you for your emotion. Thank you for your expression. It is so, so needed right now.
Yeah. Yes. Because of, and that's where I can go to the story, but like,
yes, don't go to the story. Go to the experience.
Taking that power, well, it helps me to connect, to put words,
Yeah.
But it was that taking the power where, like, yeah.
Yes.
Are better.
Good. Thank you so much. Anybody else? I think I saw, was that Kathleen that had her hand up at one point? Maybe that was a mistake. So.
I have something.
Yes, Connie, go for it.
I just keep noticing, and it like manifests itself in different ways in my personal life lately. But the dichotomy in general is just like so large right now.
Yep.
With everything, and I see it like, I feel it more in the SRI exercises, but I'm able to kind of, I'm really able to kind of make them go together very easily, even as big as they are, as different as they are. So yes. That's been like the one thing that I've been taking away from it. And the resolution seems to be like quicker when it happens like in everyday life, if that makes sense. Like,
And that's why we do this.
yeah.
The exercise is great, but it's really supposed to happen effortlessly in our everyday life.
Yeah.
And the more we do these exercises, the easier it is for that to spontaneously occur.
It's just interesting to me how it's happening like that, because it is such a huge dichotomy, and I'll see people go through it in their minds, and just in like emotions and topics that we talk about, and just everything, and it's like this huge difference, but then it all kind of comes back to the, not even the middle, but just like a really balanced place very quickly.
A new middle.
Yeah.
Yes. That's how you know you're winning.
Yay. and then I find myself like, oh, well, am I not doing good enough because there's no effort going into it? And I have to remind myself that if I was forcing it that hard, then that's not the right way to do it. I have to let it happen effortlessly.
That's how you know it's energy rich, but that is a habit to break.
Yeah, it's a really deeply ingrained one for me.
And it's cultural too. So it's not just your habit that you're breaking. It is literally a societal habit, especially here in America. I mean, America, we have, pioneer mindsets.
Pull yourself up by your bootstraps.
Exactly. So just recognize when you're doing that, Connie, you're not only liberating that habit within yourself, but you're liberating it in the cultural field as well.
That makes sense, because sometimes I get on that side of it where I'm like, well, I'm not doing enough. And then I like almost get kind of lower energy and feel a little sad about it, but then it like flips back and I'm like, nope, this is fine.
Yep. So what you can do, Connie, is just flip it. See the opposite end of that polarity. I'm not doing enough, but I can do something for the collective, right? Seeing both of those simultaneously. The I'm not doing enough is a hunger to make the change, but there's a lot more energy in I can do this for the collective. I can do this small act right now to help out humanity.
Yes, I like that.
Shift it quicker. All right, my friends, anything else? Thank you so much. Yes, Amory, yay for winning. Thank you guys so much for participating in this. This is massively important and beneficial, not only to us as individuals, but especially with what we're going through as a collective. So stay connected. We will see you guys tomorrow. Please, please, please share the video, share this Facebook link, share our YouTube site, subscribe to our YouTube site if you haven't done that already. If you feel called, don't forget we have a donation button on the Organic Living Chiropractic.com website. So let's make this next big shift towards the new renaissance, the new way of freely being and expressing and creativity. And we do that by making these very, very small shifts with high intention and with high energy. And that is enough. I love you guys. Enjoy the rest of the day, and we will see you tomorrow.
Bye-bye.